I have always been an advocate for the strict drug testing in the UFC, even to the extent of opting for my collected samples to be used for research purposes by USADA. I know without a doubt that I have done everything according to the standards set by USADA. I have faith in USADA that this situation will resolve in a timely manner and that I will be cleared of any wrongdoing. To all my fans and supporters, thank you. I assure you that I have not let you down.
Okay, so that is a statement made by Neil Magny because he was recently flagged on a USADA test.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran into him on Friday. He was at one of my events, and he agreed to come on today to talk about this issue. So, the difficulty of something like this to talk about publicly, I think we need to kind of take it in. Like, this is not something that's ever going to go away. And for him to do something like this, in my opinion, man, it bothered me to even ask him because it hurt me knowing what type of situation he was in.
Mm-hmm.
And to ask this, I mean, Jonah prodded me. He's like, dude, just ask him. And I did. I talked to him. And he says, I haven't changed my diet in 2 years. He's like, I didn't do anything wrong. This is user error. I'm like, would you want to talk about it? Sure. Why not? I've got nothing to hide.
Yeah.
So that was the conversation I had with Neil on Friday.
You know what? Let's play devil's advocate for here. And Neil is a class act, but like let's assume we're talking about somebody else.
Sure.
When you hear an athlete test positive for a banned substance, you immediately think guilty.
And just dump all over them.
Guilty.
Like you mentally dump all over the person.
And on a failed drug test, it's more guilty than proven innocent. Unlike, a murder where it's like innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
Beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So, but Neil, I think, falls in that category. He's that 3%er. And 3%er...
Well, let's just play out in the interview.
Okay.
So we're going to let you guys, the listener, listen to this. And I suggest you listen to the words coming out of his mouth carefully because some of the things he's saying, it's shocking. It's shocking to me that things are done like in this manner.
Yeah, and the way how they are.
There's got to be a better way.
Yeah. Yes. It seems like we're still in the prehistoric era of USADA, and it hasn't evolved to where it should be.
I agree.
The science is great. Well, the science is very precise. I should not say it's great. The rules haven't caught up with science.
Yeah.
I think the technique hasn't caught up with the technique, the collection.
They're really good at finding things. They're not good at knowing what they found.
Yes, the methods of collection have not caught up with the science. I agree. So, hey, guys, you know what, man? This is a really special episode. We got a guy that, I hadn't run into in a few years.
And we all watch this guy come up. He's a Chicagoland guy.
Yeah.
Dude, anytime
Home team.
And he watched the decades of work we put into getting to where he is.
Anytime somebody like this kind of breaks through and makes it to the next level, man, dude, it makes... It's good for everybody from this area.
Yeah.
So, I'm proud to say that this guy fought for me in the past. And, he's not only has done good things, I believe he's got more good things to do in the future. So, guys, with that, please check this interview out with Neil Magny.
And then when you're done, like, subscribe, share, tell your friends, all that stuff. Thank you.
I like to bet on the fights with my friends. Problem is, my friends are all broke, mostly because they bet against me. That's all right. I'm going to take my picks to BetDSI. With 20 years online, BetDSI has more deposit options than any other online sportsbook. They have fast, secure payouts, and when you use promo code Fighters Corner, one word, they're going to give you 100% sports cash bonus. Build a bigger bankroll quicker.
Also, please don't forget to subscribe, hit like, share, all because you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Radio Player, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, and the guy sitting next to you on the train is probably listening to us too. And if you can, show us your support by finding us on Patreon, where you can let us know how much you love us. And if you're a fan of boxing, jiu-jitsu, kumite, and even capoeira, go check out my guys at UCL MMA. These guys are the heavyweight champions of mixed martial arts shows. And if you think you're the next Johnny Lawrence, go to their website at uclmma.com, shoot them an email and tell them John sent you before asking their matchmaker that you want to defend your All Valley Karate Championship versus one of their fighters. That's uclmma.com. I also want to thank our new Danish friends from Denmark, Malte Castro, who was kind enough to let us use his beats for this podcast. I've listened to his tracks, and this kid's pretty talented for being this young. If you like the track being played right now, go check out his music on Spotify, and you can also find Malte Castro on Instagram and Facebook. Go find this guy. It's pretty good music.
Joining us is Neil Magny. Neil, you had some...
Neil, who you beating up over there?
Are you like disposing of a body? With us? All right, with us is Neil Magny. Now, Neil, you had some interesting news take place recently. Neil was at my last event last Friday, and he had some real interesting things to say in regards to his situation. Now, prior to this, John, I, and Jonah have all discussed Neil at length in regards to his character, military guy, hard worker, somebody that...
Disciplined,
somebody that doesn't fit like that model of somebody that's trying to cheat the system. So Neil, why don't you tell our audience what exactly is going on with you?
So a little over 2 weeks ago now, I was scheduled to fight Vicente Lipe in the co-main event for UFC Rochester. And going into fight week, I was notified by USADA about a potential violation due to banned substance potentially being found in a sample that I provided to him. So with that being said, USADA had to notify the New York State Athletic Commission. And upon notifying the New York State Athletic Commission would not license me to fight in the state of New York leading into that fight.
All right, so did they take a second sample from you?
Yeah, so the thing about USADA that makes it difficult is even though, if a drug test is positive or has any kind of bad substance in it, I would think the first thing you do is immediately retest. But the way the USADA works is even there's the fact that there's a potential bad substance in your sample, it doesn't negate the fact that it's in there. So getting an immediate retest doesn't quite eliminate the test that showed up positive, potentially positive in the past. So I would love to have gotten retested right away, but that's just not the way they did it.
Okay, so there for the margin of error or lab error, which I'm sure is very small. Anytime you talk about laboratory error, it can't be a large percentage, including dealing with an organization like USADA. However, it does exist. So were you able to submit a second sample?
So about 6 days after that, I was notified by USADA for potential violation. I was tested again by USADA. They actually met up in the middle of a Home Depot to get tested, and we went, provided the sample, and was on our way. After that was all taken care of. In addition to my initial sample, I was able to fly out to Los Angeles and get my B sample tested and see if the B sample showed up with the same contaminant that the A sample came up with.
And what did it show?
And by doing so, that would potentially eliminate the possibility for human error. I mean,
how did it come back? How did that second sample come back?
So I'm still waiting to find out what the result that was. The lab couldn't notify me directly as far as what it was or what the numbers are, anything like that. They have to notify USADA first, and then USADA, once they receive that information, would then notify me. But for whatever legal reason, the lab wasn't able to disclose that information to me directly.
Okay, so why don't you bring us through the entire process? So, like, us novices can kind of understand the process. I mean, you've been in the USADA program for almost 2 years now. Am I correct?
Longer than that, since I think a little before 2015, I've been being tested by USADA.
Okay.
On their roster, I'm one of the most tested athletes. I mean, I've had over 30 plus tests by USADA over the last couple of years. So,
and never a failed test, never a flag, nothing. Like, what about a missed test? Were you ever somewhere where, like, did they ever show up and you weren't there and you got a miss or anything like that?
Nope, we never had a potential violation, never had a missed test, never had anything of that nature for the past 4 years that I've been part of the USADA testing pool.
Now, has your diet changed or anything like that? Like, what do you attribute this to? What do you attribute this positive test to, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, actually, real quick, I'm just going to interject real
So
quick.
dealing with this potential violation, with the potential positive findings of this substance, whatever it is, it's real difficult to attribute to anything. I mean, for the most part, my supplements haven't changed. I mean, unless the manufacturers of the supplements that have been taken over the last 4 years have changed what they put in it. For the most part, that hasn't changed much at all. So other than diet or things like that, just eating regular food, I can't really account for anything else that could potentially even be something that would raise suspicion or cause a false positive, anything like that.
Well, I will say that statistically speaking, you being one of the most tested athletes, you are statistically the most likely to get a false positive just because they keep on retesting you. They should take that into consideration, and all of the positive tests that you've had.
Of the negative tests.
I'm sorry, all the negative tests, all the good tests. I'm sorry, I meant positive in the other sense, not positive in the they should take it. They should take your record to account.
Bringing the scope of things. Yeah. So Neil, what is your next step from here? Like, what are you being instructed to do by your handlers?
So at this point, it's just kind of going through the process. I mean, the first part of the process is you gather up all your supplements that you've been taking, and you send those out to a lab to get tested and see if those have any contaminants in it. In addition to that, one of the things that you do as well is go through and get the B sample tested. As I mentioned earlier, that kind of eliminates the possibility for any kind of lab error. I mean, when I was in LA visiting the lab, they did mention that there's a 3% chance, and they have had false positives in the past. I mean, what are the odds that I fall in that 3%? We'll find out, but it's human error. I mean, it's bound to happen. I mean, there's no way that a human can run any kind of test or anything like that and not come up with an error at least once. So that is a possibility still, and that's still being ran through and try to eliminate as far as that goes. But at this point, just kind of carry on business as usual. I mean, I'm not changing too much. Just kind of keep my life the way it has been going, following through with the test that USADA's having me go through. And hopefully all this stuff would help out when it comes time for some kind of hearing. I mean, I've never had a negative test in the past. I've had a negative test 9 days prior to this potential positive one, and I had another test prior to being notified of this potential violation. I got tested 6 days after that, and hopefully that one comes back negative as well. And having all those things work in my favor, I'm sure USADA can take that into consideration when it comes time to make a decision as far as what's going to happen next in case that the B sample does not show up negative.
Yeah.
Realistically, I'm sorry,
I was going to say, Neil, you said earlier a couple times already in this podcast that you got flagged by USADA saying that there's a potential positive test. Like, isn't it either you're positive or you're not, or it's a positive test or a negative test? Like, why is it blurry? Why are they saying there's a potential positive here?
That's the thing that makes it pretty difficult because, unlike a lot of other places where you get tested third party, USADA is going through a pretty intense process to test your samples. Like being able to go through the lab and seeing how they conduct themselves and what they do. By the time they tested my urine sample, it wasn't even urine anymore. I mean, they added chemicals to it to separate the waste from the good stuff they need to test. And then they went through a process of dehydrating that and getting that all by itself. And then on top of that, they went through another process of rehydrating it and then putting that stuff into a separate valve and sending that off to a lab. So it's a pretty intense process. And when you start adding things to someone's sample, you start taking things out of someone's sample and all that other stuff, it leaves room for human error. I mean, if it was as simple as like my peas in a cup, they stick a dip test in there and it shows up positive, yeah, then it's pretty straightforward. But when you're going through such an intense process of trying to narrow down what a substance is, quantify whatever the substance is, and then be able to identify potential cause of contamination, you have to be real careful about how you label that going forward, especially for the athlete versus USADA states. I mean, we see Yoel Miller was just rewarded $27 million.
Yeah, you know what though? But that's like with the supplement company, and one, in my opinion, it vindicates him in regards to being a cheater. but like that company's just going out of business. Like the likelihood of him seeing anything substantial or significant, with that big of a judgment, I can't. Who can afford that?
Right.
And also, even though he gets money back, he doesn't get that career back. He doesn't get what he really lost.
Yeah, Neil. Neil, when I read your statement, Neil and I obviously, Neil came from this area.
This area being
the Chicagoland area.
The Chicago area.
And
home field.
Eventually, what Neil did was he made some adjustments in his game, and he started traveling to other camps like fighters have to do.
Yeah.
So Neil's fought for me in the past, but at the end of the day, like I know a lot of people that know Neil personally, and when he flagged and I read his statement, Neil, that was I don't know if you had help writing your statement. That was one of the most heartfelt. That was one of the most heartfelt things that you could have written, and it was very real. It was like, I will not let you down. Like, he wasn't lying about that. Like, that's somebody that's like, hey, man, I'm an open book. Come take a look at anything you want. Like Neil, what you wrote, it significantly touched me as somebody that has fallen on the wrong side of justice. Like, somebody that like, they're being wronged.
And we will put a link to the statement. We do encourage you to read it. Just in terms of minutes, it's a bit long to sit and read on a 30-minute podcast, but definitely read this statement. It's really, really good.
Yeah, real heartfelt.
So Neil, what is your actual feelings of USADA and having gone through it since 2015?
Even now with this potential violation, I'm still a huge advocate for USADA. I mean, it's something that's needed in the sport. I mean, we do need someone watching the sport who's not going to be persuaded one way or the other. Needs someone that's going to be neutral and fair in judgment either way. But one of the difficult things of USADA, especially I'm noticing now, is there has to be some guidelines set, because USADA's testing is getting so advanced that the rest of the supplement companies have a difficult time keeping up with it. And that creates a potential for false positives and all that kind of stuff in the future as well.
Yeah, they're saying certain shampoos would set it off. Like if you change your shampoo, like you could have issues. Like at some point, like common sense has to take over. And I get no one wants to cheat. No one wants to fight a cheater.
Just like there have to be levels and lines that fighters can't cross. It is important to have those. USADA needs to be They also need to.
Well, there also needs to be an overhaul. Like, if you don't think that there's issues in certain countries where fighters haven't changed at all physically,
well,
they're
if they were to take someone's reputation, because when you look at a fight, like we always talk about, the fight camp is this many weeks or whatever. It's decades to get to the point where you're fighting these fights. They're taking that all away from you for a possibility that maybe we got it. Maybe, like if you blow a cup up, if you burn a hole in a cup. Maybe. Okay, yeah. Don't let that guy fight immediately. Shut it down now. But they took a fight away. They took away the payday. They took away all that hard work. They damaged
all the gym time, all the trainers, your supplements, everything.
Yeah, because he potentially used the wrong shampoo or something. Or because, like you mentioned, when they test the sample, they're not testing your urine. Your urine is as much like, by the time they test it, is as much like your urine as corn syrup is to corn.
Okay.
I mean, they chemically...
It's a byproduct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like you said, they break it down, they dehydrate it, they rehydrate it, they add things, they take things away.
I was going to actually ask Neil. Neil, what was the banned substance that came up in your positive test?
So the potential bad substance that came up was a product called LGD 4033.
Okay.
What that is, I have no idea. What it does, I have no idea. But through Googling it, I was able to find out that it's in actually a lot of different things. And there are many things that was actually tested positive for.
Can you give us an example of something? Like, give us an example.
It's been found in, it's literally been found in shampoos. It's been found in lotions. It's been found in body wash. It's been found in muscle relief ointments. It's been found in a variety of different things.
So you could have actually washed yourself.
Yeah, in a public washroom.
Had a soap molecule.
Yeah.
Like you just got out of the shower, had a soap molecule somehow find its way into the cup, which is possible. I mean, it's possible.
My wife is literally a hairstylist. I mean, she owns a salon, and she does quite.
This is her fault.
This is her fault. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'd have a conversation.
This is your way out.
I know she's your wife, but you might have to sue her.
Yeah.
But I mean, that just goes to show you how intense this testing is getting. I mean, the one thing that's a positive. I mean, with every sample I've applied through USADA over the last 4 years, I've always elected to have my sample tested or used for additional research. And it's for things like this. I mean, there's going to be the test has gotten so advanced that when USADA goes through and tests these athletes and these potential banned substances come up, they can actually quantify that banned substance and actually determine whether or not there was actually a performance enhancement element to it, or if it was just something that was done through contamination. They can actually do that with their testing and their research and all that kind of stuff. So with USADA getting this advanced with the testing and being so far ahead of the game, they have to take that into account and give not necessarily a grace for some fighters, but there has to be some kind of standard set where it's like, hey man, we get it. You can't control the lotion company, the supplement company, the soap company, the agriculture company. There's just so many different things that are out of your control as an athlete where you can get a potential violation that we have to put some kind of standard out there that would account for contamination that is out of the athlete's reach. And if it's within a certain limit, then like you guys were saying earlier, a fighter should be allowed to pursue his career and continue his fight going without being pulled or flagged or anything like that. But in the case now where it's just like when you're measuring down to picograms and further than that, where guys are having no significant advantage for having these trace amounts of banned supplements in their system, it makes it pretty difficult to actually like justify it. I mean, it's really going to get to a point where a majority of athletes under the USADA program are going to test positive one time or another throughout the course of their career because of how advanced the testing is getting. And it's so far out of our control. Like
what's the solution? In your opinion, Neil, of somebody that's gone through this, what do you think the proper solution is?
I think the solution is to use that science, use that backup. I mean, USADA is a pretty well-funded organization. They have a lot of resources at their disposal. I mean, if they're able to quantify these results, they're able to know whether or not if they're able to use their judgment as to whether or not someone was cheating or whatever it may be, they can make that judgment call. But like to literally post someone's fight and potentially damage their reputation based off of an error that was out of an athlete's reach, I just don't think it's fair. I mean, it'll be equivalent to someone getting pulled over for doing 2 miles over the speed limit, and the next day
losing their license.
All of the newspapers to being the big-time criminal. I mean, it's just not the same. I mean, you can't hold a rapist the same standard of as a person that's going 2 miles above the speed limit. I mean,
I agree.
Yeah, sure, there was a law that was broken, yeah, absolutely, but was one intentional? Was the other not intentional? And there should be a different standard as far as how that person is treated. And I think that's what should happen with USADA. I mean, these guys are smart enough and have enough resources to know whether or not a person was. Yeah, right. You would hope. I mean, otherwise, just get rid of them altogether and go back to the Wild Wild West days. But they have so many resources at their disposal that they can actually determine whether or not a person had a significant advantage based off of whatever was found in their samples, and they should use that information going forward.
Yeah, and that's the best analogy that I've heard. That it's like treating people who speed like murderers. Like everyone gets the same punishment, no matter what it is, even if it's something that's maybe new and that could be in your soap. It could have been in the soap at the Home Depot where they tested you. And you mentioned a number earlier that it's a 3% chance. If you could imagine a test where, say, okay, there's a 3% margin of error, so 3 out of every 100 people are going to lose their job
and if
by mistake.
Right.
You say no.
Your argument should be if it's not 100%, it's not a good test.
Exactly.
You know?
Well, I mean, it's like it's the death penalty argument. Okay, heinous crimes. Everyone is going to sit here and go, man, you do something awful to a kid, you deserve to die. There's no gray area there.
Well, it's the death penalty argument for speeding and jaywalking.
That's it. Yeah, but there's also innocent people that are sitting in jail that DNA is clearing up. It's like it's hard to get behind something without DNA conviction attached to it. You know what I mean? Unless the death penalty is 100%, I have difficulty getting behind it.
But it's
not. It's much worse. Yeah.
Yeah. But like it's you have speeders and you have murderers, It's like saying we have to take everyone's job away at the slightest hint that maybe possibly they could have been standing next to somebody who did something wrong, because there are guys out there doing D-ball and all these crazy, all these crazy steroids.
Designers, designer drugs or EPO. I mean, they just that whole EPO thing. They just came out with TJ Dillashaw.
Yeah,
like it seems like it's out of control. And like you said, there was one system in place, and it was letting the state handle it. Now, if you need to, instead of going to USADA, maybe using that same technology the night of the fight, to where if they're so micro that they can go back and pick out like a picogram, well, then maybe we should just use that same technology the night of the fight or the day before the fight at weigh-ins through the state regulating bodies. Mm-hmm. I mean, it only makes sense to me.
Yeah.
It eliminates stuff like this.
Yeah, no, It does. It hurts. It hurts the fighters. It hurts the fans. I mean, I'm sure Neil's getting stung by this too.
And there's been fighters that have tested positive in the past that have been allowed to fight on a positive steroid test.
Yeah,
and this
on multiple occasions, not just Brock Lesnar.
Yeah,
I think Sean Shirk fell into that category as well.
And in this particular instance, it's somebody whose reputation is so good, even his opponent came out and said, "Nah, I don't." Nah,
yeah, I mean, Neil, you got a guy that you're about to step in a cage with, and your opponent fronted for your reputation.
I mean, that should speak for itself. I mean, I know.
Think about that.
Above the law, and everyone should be treated with the same standard or whatever. But like that standard should be across the board for everyone. Like one of the biggest things USADA said when they came out is like we want to make this a level playing field. But in order to make this level playing field, you have to account for all these different things, including contamination.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way you can sort of book at someone for contamination that's so far out of their reach.
Neil,
what if it was something?
Neil, what happens if a body hair fell off of you, like a chest hair or pubic hair, whatever? What happens if one of those little tiny hairs that we had talked about, maybe you washed with shampoo that it had in it, fell in that cup?
Here, what if the wife is taking a shampoo that's contaminated with this stuff, and now she's kissing Neil?
What if he's in a
dirty
ass Home Depot
right? I mean, like
bathroom?
something as simple and as stupid as that can trigger these positive tests.
I mean, they're taking tests in public places.
Yeah.
It's a public place.
Yeah.
Somebody could have been smoking crack in that bathroom 5 minutes before.
Right.
It's not a controlled environment.
Neil, what is the standard protocol? Like, do they ever come at like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., or is it usually during like normal times and hours?
There's not necessarily a standard protocol. Like I've literally been tested all hours of the day. I mean, they don't necessarily have like a.
Have you ever been woken up out of bed? Have you been woken up out of bed to go take this? How many times?
Yeah, plenty of times. At least 2 to 3 times I've literally been woken up out of bed, and even a few times I was just kind of like, whatever. Maybe it's the Amazon man at the door, and the doorbell just keeps going. The dog's barking. I'm just like, all right, well, maybe this is a little bit more serious than the Amazon man. I should probably get up and go check it out. And,
you almost got a miss.
Yeah, this guy's not dropping off. He's picking up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So like, all right. So it's all hours of the night. And is it usually like the same people? Like, how many different guys are you encountering in your 30+ tests?
So a majority of my tests have always, I should say, all of my tests that have been tested at home or within Colorado was done by the same person, with the exception of the one test that potentially tested positive for a banned substance, which ironically...
You want that one. Okay, I want the old tester. How do I get him back? It's almost like a waiter at a restaurant.
Yeah, I literally told him that. Last time he tested me, I did. The one time you don't test me, I end up potentially testing positive. So
you actually know these guys personally, I'm assuming. I'd say about 90% of the fight community all kind of lives in, like, not the one area, but like an area that's heavily populated, with those fighters. Because, fighters, they're kind of like pack animals. They go from here to there. So, I mean, you would think you need like hundreds and thousands of testers, where in all reality, you probably got about 15 major cities that you got to have like people set up in. Mm-hmm. Like here in the United States.
Absolutely.
Here in the United States.
Yeah, absolutely.
Neil, do they after Agent Smith from the Matrix comes to your door at 1 o'clock in the morning, knocking on to ask you to pee in a cup? Does because that's how I think they all look.
Yeah.
Do they ask you up front, like, hey man, like, do you want to tell us anything before we take this piss test?
Yeah, it's like almost like a confession type
like,
period.
Or what are we gonna find here, Neil? You know what I mean? Like, do any of those questions pop up, or they just say, hey, pee in a cup? We'll talk to you in a little bit. Like, is that how it pretty much
for the most part, for the most part, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, there's some small talk as you're waiting to have to go. And,
Yeah, because it's about to handle your urine. You would hope
Yeah.
you'd ease that in, you know?
It's like playing some waterfall music in the background
yeah,
just to
right.
help it ease it out. But Neil, but do they actually formally ask you like, hey, what are the substances or what are the
Like, what have you had today?
Yeah, what have you
do
eaten?
they ask
like,
you for diet? Like, bring us really through this.
So as far as diet goes, they have never went super intense as far as like, hey, you want to know what you eat in the last week or 2 weeks or whatever it may be. They never gotten as far as like we do with the diet, but as far as your supplements go, they do a pretty good job of like having you list all the supplements you took over the course of the last 7 days or so. So if there's any kind of protein, BCAAs, amino acids, fish oils, anything like that you take, they would want you to at least document it in case there's something like this where there's any kind of potential violation. You can't just say down the road like, hey, you step positive for this. Oh yeah, it must be that protein that I took that I never disclosed. Here it is. It's this stuff here.
So you have to literally track.
To kind of clear that up and kind of ask you straightforward. But even then, it's not a foolproof system. I mean,
what about the call-in
case, for
policy?
example,
Like, you have to call whenever you move somewhere, you go somewhere. Is that every time you move, or is it just like for extended periods of time? Like, what is the call procedure and policy in regards to movement?
Last week when I was in Chicago at your show, I had to notify USADA a couple days ahead of time. Like, hey, I'm going to be traveling to Chicago. My flight's at this time, I land at this time. I'll be staying at this address. I'll be traveling on this date to come back home.
Hey, so you have to do that like every time.
So kind of like you're on parole.
Every time, every time you're spending the night somewhere that's not your actual home, you have to give USADA a heads up. So if it's not your official address where you live,
can you
have to give USADA.
Can you imagine how many old ladies?
highway,
Can you imagine how many old ladies like would disguise their voice like it's their husband? Yeah, where was I at 4 nights ago? I mean, I am not down with that.
Yeah. I mean, not to throw my wife under the bus, but there's been times before we were married where I spent a night at her house and I didn't disclose it on my USADA whereabouts. And at 5 a.m., I'm getting a call like, hey, Neil, where are you? We're at your doorstep. And within 15, 20 minutes, I'm having to race home and meet him there so I don't get a potential violation. So, yeah, I mean, there's stuff like that happens all the time. I mean,
that's nuts.
Which is extra
nature being human.
Which is extra bad when at a time when you're dating and you don't know if she's gonna let you spend the night or not.
Oh yeah. I mean? Yeah. The USADA guy's there. Oh yeah, good one, Neil. Okay. Yeah. Take care.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, my early 20s, the USADA used to have been great, but
yeah, right.
Yeah, I got to go, hon. I mean, I might get drug tested. I mean, I carry a scale with me at all times. These things are super important. You just have no idea. Yeah.
My God.
All right, Neil, walk us through it, man. Give us what your next move is. Let us know. I mean, we really appreciate your time, and we don't want to take too much of it. What's next for Neil Magny? What's next for Neil Magny?
So literally at this point, it's literally the waiting game. I mean, you want to think of it as a law enforcement process. I mean, I'm sitting in a jail cell waiting for my court date.
That's horrible,
I'm
man.
pretty much waiting for USADA to. Yeah, I mean, it literally is what it feels like. You have to wait for USADA to do the investigation, see what they come back with, and then from there we can move forward with it all. But like, until the samples come back, until all that stuff comes back, I'm kind of at a standstill, and my life is literally on hold. I mean, every time my phone rings or I get a notification, I'm sprinting to the phone like, oh, is it USADA? Are they calling me? What'd they find?
Oh, my God.
Neil,
and that's what it's going to have to be.
Neil, does the UFC help you out in this at all? Like, do they compensate you? Do they compensate you, or they help you out? Like, obviously, like, you're out of money now, or you're out of a purse.
Are they contacting you? Are they in contact with you in regards to like what they expect?
As far as compensation goes, I mean, this is a pretty big loss. I mean, I paid for the entire training camp.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
find
about.
Out 5 days out. Yeah, find out 5 days out that this is not happening. So as far as compensation goes, there is no compensation from the UFC end. But as far as like helping you throughout the process with USADA, they have been doing a pretty great job at that. I mean, Donna and Jeff Novinsky, they've been going through and keeping in contact like, hey, this is what I would suggest. This is what's next. This is what happened.
They help you through it. Okay, they walk you through it. Okay, that's good. That actually makes me happy to hear. Yeah, that makes me happy to hear.
Yeah, so it's not Yeah, it's not one of those things where it's like, hey, you test this positive, you're on your own. Let us know how it works out. Like, I mean, Don
Yeah,
especially
good luck.
has been
Yeah.
amazing
Give me a
about it.
call when you find out your results.
Yeah, but and
Yeah.
there's no compensation for the fight that you missed, though. There's
No.
No, not at all.
That's horrible.
Even if it's human error. I mean, Neil, you know what, man? This is what I want from you. If this is proven to be human error, like Yoel Romero, I think you should get an attorney and just maybe let USADA figure this out.
You know, and I think especially,
absolutely.
I'd be very curious to see about the false positives that came up.
Yeah, who else is in that category?
First of all,
Yeah.
like, are they also heavily tested athletes who have more rolls of the dice? Are they also being tested in public places? Because that could be a huge issue.
Oh, there's a ton of variables. Just hearing Neil talk about it alone.
Yeah, I mean, they tested him at a Home Depot, and this issue is something that's in soap. Did they clean the bathroom 5 minutes ago?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
did they? Yeah.
And how often?
And honestly, too, 3%.
That's very high. That's very
huge.
high.
That's
if,
huge.
If 3% of people who had a surgery died, that surgery
Yeah.
would be illegal, and a doctor would go to prison for
Exactly.
suggesting.
Exactly.
Like, that's a lot of. I mean, 3% is very, very high. If you had a 3% chance of winning when you played the lottery, we'd all be millionaires.
Yeah, we'd play every day.
You know what it's going to come down to? It's going to be like a high-profile fighter who's losing out on a big purse because of a drug test that comes positive.
Well, if he's talking 30+ times that he's been tested, that's like
Those
1.5%.
Yeah.
Those odds aggregate. So, like,
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
roll of the dice is another chance.
I mean, he gets tested 100
3%,
times.
30,
3 of them are going to come up.
30 tests.
Yeah. So he's right into that category.
I can't do the math off the top of my head, but 3% odds after 30 times comes out to be more like
Like
11.5%.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't.
1.5, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Okay.
11%.
I barely graduated high school. I think I
Yeah.
figured that one out.
Yeah.
So no, Neil. I mean, you're right. You're actually right in the scope of that time. So the longer your life is in the UFC, and the more testing that you have by USADA, it's just a waiting game. Either you're going to take your positive test up front, or you're going to take it on the back end.
Yeah, but it's coming.
But it's coming.
Yeah. Yeah, and it sucks that he can't say, like, hey, man, I got some good time served. You know what I mean? Can
2
you
years from
be
now?
a little lenient on me?
2 years from now, USADA's not going to be here. Mark my words.
Neil, I'll take your piss test from me at Home Depot, man.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
Me and Jonah in a black van.
Anyway, Neil, we really, really appreciate your
Oh,
time.
yeah.
And also, I know this is a very difficult thing to talk about, and thank you for
Yeah.
being so open about it.
Much
This
appreciated.
is a big deal.
This is, I mean, this is your career. This is your legacy. I mean, when you have children, they're going to read about this later on. And the way you're handling this with the dignity and you're handling it very stoically.
Yeah.
You know, with a
Class.
lot of dignity.
Class
and,
act.
And Neil, you need to continue down that road because unfortunately in the internet era, things like this just don't go away even when you're right.
Yeah.
So, Neil,
For sure.
thank you for your time.
Take care, Neil. We appreciate
problem,
it. Take care, all right, bud?
Be good.
All right, guys, have a good one.
You know, Jon, Jonah, you know, you just heard, like, if you listen to our past episodes, we've talked quite a bit about USADA and the drug testing protocol and process. Now we just talked to somebody that is a potential victim of what's happening over there. So what are your thoughts on it?
Well, you say potential. I think he is a victim. Okay? And, you know, when bad things happen to good people, you can't...
It makes you fight even harder.
Yeah, it does. And
Here, how many positive drug tests have we came in here like, oh, dude, this is wrong? How many? We've never done that.
No.
It's quite
No.
the opposite.
No, like I said earlier, it's when you see a positive drug test, it's guilty until proven innocent. You know, and that's what you immediately think of. But with Neil,
No, like,
it's not the same.
He put all the money when a fighter fights, he doesn't just win a purse. It's a math equation. It costs him a certain amount of money to get into that shape, to get to everything he needs to do to get there costs him a certain amount of money, and then he makes the purse and he pays himself back. He spent all that money because he got almost all the way to the fight,
Yep.
and
gone.
even the stuff he hadn't done yet, he had already paid for
Yeah.
because it was right around the corner. And he lost the fight.
he
didn't just lose the money; he went negative because he lost the cost.
Yeah.
he's taking it a lot better than I would have taken
I
it.
tell you this, man.
I'd be flipping chairs at Home Depot.
Do you know how difficult it was for me to like look a guy in the eye and just go, hey, man, I know you're probably talking about this a lot. I've got an event going on. I've got everyone asking me questions. I'm paying people out. I'm dealing with the commission. I see Neil, and it was like, man, all this other stuff can wait. I go, this is like a decent human being.
Yeah.
And it's just like, hey, Neil, man, I'm sorry. I didn't even ask him what happened. Nuh-uh. I'm sorry is what I started with. Like, it was hard. It was hard for me to talk to him about that because I felt so bad for him.
Yeah.
You know, we put together the odds, and we're looking at, you know, the 3% odds magnified by the 33, you know, tests at, you know, 13%. Basically, 1 in 10 odds that this was going to happen to him, the way that they've been drug testing him. And look at the attitude he has about it.
Yeah.
Still fantastic attitude, very positive. He still believes that this testing is necessary, and he's right.
This might be
drug testing.
this might be that hole in the dam that, you know, the finger isn't really clogging anymore.
You know,
I think the water's about to start to pour out.
I hope this is where they get it right. I hope this is where they start.
You know what, man? In all honesty, if they are going to get it right, and Neil Magny's name's attached to it, that would make me happy.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. All right, it's a bad situation.
I think that makes everything better.
better.
Yeah.
It doesn't make him whole,
No.
but it makes it better.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, what he's experiencing right now is like, man, do you know how Neil Magny wins fights? It's not by sheer athleticism. It's hard work in the gym. That guy wears you down. He breaks you physically because he's not in just a little bit better shape than you. His shape is in much better shape than you.
it's ironic. He's such a nice guy, and he's a crusher of souls.
Yeah, I mean that's that's how Neil Magny fights. That's how he fights.
yeah.
Like Neil Magny very rarely has won a first round.
Mm-hmm.
It's that second and third round where he just
Before he got
away.
to the big show here in Chicago, I saw him in fights where I felt like he could have won in the first round, but he wasn't done punishing. Like he wanted to take it.
The soul leader.
Yeah.
He very rarely wins a first round, and it's that second, third, fourth and fifth, if that opportunity ever presents itself.
Yeah.
Is where he pulls ahead. And dude, let me tell you something, man. I'm a Neil Magny fan.
I'm trying to figure out how you can't be a Neil Magny fan. You know what I mean? Give me a reason why I can't be a Neil Magny fan.
I mean, he's a really nice guy. He's well spoken.
Hometown guy, home team. Always root for home team.
Military man. I got one of those soft spots. I obviously didn't serve, but if you're a military guy, man, I see an old guy walk around with a hat on. First thing I do, whoa, no matter what I'm doing, I thank him for their service.
Oh yeah.
Like to me, that's important, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I'm going to correct you real quick, John. You said always root for the hometown guy. Always root for the Chicago guy. I don't care what town you're from. You root for the Chicago guy.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think we got a lot. Like we really kind of grilled Neil, and he wasn't dodging any questions.
No, and he seems to be less like we're all furious. We're all pissed.
I'll
think
flip
he's less
tables at Home
upset.
Depot.
But yeah, exactly. I think he's less upset, but he's definitely being honest.
And he could have been a dick about it. Like if they would have been like, "Hey, dude, get
no
the van.
interviews. We're gonna figure this out."
Yeah.
I mean,
but
it's a smart move on USADA's move. I mean, that's probably from here on out.
Yeah.
I mean, essentially before it was, all right, if you test positive, we're not going to say anything. There's all these weird new rules in regards to them, and who knows what's being said behind the scenes. But I in the interview, I said, in 2 years, USADA's not going to be here. I believe that.
Well,
what I would suggest you do is go to betdsi.eu.
Yeah, or .com.
Or.com. And look for a parlay bet about USADA being around in 2 years because it might be up there.
Take the under.
Take
the under.
Along with basketball, hockey, odds, and every, football.
I bet Neil Magny is going to win in the third round. I'm going to parlay it with USADA going under.
Yeah, under 2 years.
Yes.
And you know what's weird? If you put in a promo code called Fighters Corner,
One word,
Jonah, what happens?
100% sports cash bonus.
What?
There you go.
That's incredible.
Take that to the bank.
Guys, thanks for joining the podcast. Like, hit, subscribe, share, do anything you can. Spread the word, man. Thank you so much.